Hey guys, so in this video, I'm doing something a little bit different from what I usually make. Instead of giving you tips on how to get faster, I'm going to be talking about what I think are the 3 most underrated solves in speedcubing. But before we get into that list, what exactly is an underrated solve? It's not necessarily the most impressive solve ever or a world record. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. An underrated solve is one that's absolutely insane, but never got the recognition or praise it deserved. So in this video, I'll be sharing 3 solves that I think perfectly fit that description, and if you end up disagreeing with any of my picks, feel free to let me know what your choices would be in the comments. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. The first solve we're going to be talking about is Carson Wajaja's 4.05. And if you know who Carson Wajaja is, I want you to take your right hand, raise it up, and give yourself a pat on the back. If you don't, honestly, that's pretty understandable because Carson is already a really underrated cuber. As someone who's also from New Jersey, I felt like I had to show everyone just how strong the New Jersey cubing scene really is. And in my opinion, Carson's 4.05 is one of those solves that deserves way more attention than it got. As always, I'll put the scramble up on screen so you can follow along. And with that, let's jump into the reconstruction. So he starts to solve with the X2Y inspection, and currently all of our cross edges are here, 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 and here. And he first starts his cross with the D. This moves the green opposite to blue. After that, he moves the blue down here with L, and this makes it adjacent to the green. Then he does U prime to put the red on top of this blue cross piece so that after this blue is inserted, the red is just one move away from being inserted. So then it solves the blue over here. And after that, instead of solving the red immediately, he does something pretty smart. So he notices in inspection that he can set up this pair. But if he wants to solve it in the front, it's more efficient to move this edge here with the U2 so that after you do R prime, you can set up this really easy pair to solve here. So then he solves this cross, U2, and solves this pair into this slot pretty easily. And after that, he does something which I don't think I've ever seen before. He ends up doing a wide D prime. He does that to solve this red-green pair in this slot over here. And he does that the standard way with L prime, U prime, L, U2 prime, L prime, U, L. So now it's solved here. Then he solves the green-orange pair over here with U2 prime, RU, R prime, U2, and then he rotates and solves it in the front like so. Now this over here separates the amateurs from the good cubers because Carson just has this pair left. However, instead of doing it the normal way, he notices something different. He first solves it the normal way. However, right before he inserts it, he notices that if he does a U2, R, and then inserts a pair, he'll get a last layer skip. And he ends up doing that. So this is why I put this solve at number 3, because not only is it really underrated, it's one of the only solves in competition that gets a last layer skip at 2 on camera. And if you thought that this solve was underrated, just wait until you see the next one. The next solve is so underrated that I actually had to reconstruct it myself. And believe it or not, it's both a national record and a sub 4. This solve I'm talking about is none other than Timofey Tarasenko's 3.72. The way Timofey solves at such a young age is honestly unbelievable. And this solve is a perfect example of why so many people see him as one of the most talented up-and-coming cubers. He solved this on yellow cross. So if you want to follow along, scramble your cube with yellow on top and green in front. And with that said, let's get straight into the reconstruction. He begins to solve an inspection with a Y2. Currently, all of our cross edges are here, 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 and here. He ends up doing a double X cross. He begins his cross with the RF prime. This solves this corner and it solves these 2 cross edges. Now all that's left is to move this edge over here to complete his double X cross, because this edge and this corner are already solved. To do this, he moves these two cross pieces opposite each other, like so that this edge is connected to its center. This also sets it up in a way where he can now insert this orange edge over here, since all of these cross edges are now opposite each other. And then after that, he moves this like so. He does a U2, and he does R2. Not only does this R2 solve this edge, but it also solves this corner into this slot, so that after he does a D, he solves these F2L pair and this F2L pair. Then he solves this pair in the front with a U2, L prime, U2, L, U prime, and he solves it in the back like so. After that, he solves this pair the normal way, like so, and he gets an easy OLO with the PLL skip U2 AUF. And the reason I picked this solve is because it's probably the only solve on this list that has a double X cross and still is barely talked about. And with that, let's move on to what I think is the most underrated speed cubing solve of all time. So the most underrated cubing solve is so underrated that I can't even reconstruct it. Let me explain. This solve is Bo-Fan Zhang's 3.39. And the reason it's so underrated is because in the exact same round, Xuan Yi got a 3.71 AO5 with a 2.8 single. So that completely shifted all the focus away from Bo-Fan's incredible time. And if that wasn't enough, Bo-Fan himself got a 4.38 AO5. So people sort of forgot about his insane single and just focused on the crazy fast average. It's honestly a crime how little attention this solve gets. Now, because I'm such a nice guy, I'm going to be giving an honorable mention to a solve that was completely ignored too. But this solve was actually a world record. And I'm sure some of the OG cubers watching this know exactly what I'm talking about. This solve is none other than Keaton Ellis's 5.09. The reason this solve is so underrated is because at the exact same competition, Lucas Eder got the world's first sub-5 official solve. And that completely stole the spotlight from Keaton. Think about that. The guy broke the world record and still got overshadowed. Here's how he did it though. I'll leave the scramble up on screen again for you guys to follow along. So he begins to solve with the X2 inspection. Our cross pieces are here, 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 and this is solved. And he begins his cross by doing an X cross. He first does R to solve this red cross piece over here. After that, he makes an X cross with this corner and this edge by doing L, F prime. After that, he does something I don't think I've ever seen before by the pros. He rotates in his cross with a Y prime. Then he does L, F prime, L2 prime. So I don't really understand the purpose of this the first time I saw it, but he actually did this L2 to go straight into this pair with U2, L. Now he sets up this pair and he ends up doing a YD, like so. Then he just solves this pair in the back, like so. And after that, he solves this pair in the back with a U2, Y prime, and he solves it in the back like so, the normal way. Then he just has this pair which he can solve with U prime, R, U2, R prime, and he can just set up this. Now he gets a soon with the U2 AUF. And that's going to do it for this video. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't reconstruct the 3.39, but if any of you guys managed to do it, please tag me in the video because I genuinely love to see it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.